Welcome to Mupdates, your monthly Medfield updates. I'm Audrey Ensor, and this is our January 2021 episode. We're covering Medfield Annual Town Election information, the Fire Chief's presentation at the January 19th Selectboard meeting, and Representative Garlick's annual report to the community. We also have an update from the school committee, as well as the planning board giving information on their proposed zoning bylaw amendments for the 2021 annual town meeting. First up, let's talk about the annual town election information. Nomination papers are now available at the town clerk's office at Town Hall. These papers require 50 signatures of Medfield registered voters per candidate and are due back to the town clerk's office by February 8th at 4:30 p.m. Positions open for nomination include Select Board, Moderator, Town Clerk, Assessor, School Committee, Library Trustee, Planning Board, Park Commissioner, Housing Authority, and Trust Fund Commissioner. The annual town election will be held on Monday, March 29th, 2021. Next, we have an edited down segment of Fire Chief Carrico's presentation at the January 19th Select Board meeting about the need for on-call firefighters in Medfield.
For operational staffing, some things have changed. I'm down 2 full-time firefighter paramedics now. One paramedic went to Pembroke Fire. So we're currently in the hiring process to bring my staff up to approved levels. So I'll be interviewing on the 25th. Hopefully we'll have a good candidate or 2 good candidates on that date, which I'll try to move forward. As far as the on-call staff is, since I started here, if you remember back when I interviewed, one of the things I said is that we need to have at least 20 call firefighters to maintain levels and maintain a proper response. And right now, I have about 5 active guys out of the 11 that are on the roster, and that's not acceptable. I need to add some people to that roster. I'm looking for anybody that's interested in the fire service. Obviously, you need to come down and ask, and then I'll show you, and then you have to make a decision on if you can commit. You know, the Firefighter 1-2 program is 240 hours, and the EMT program is 180 hours. So it's a little bit of a commitment. You know, but once you get those, you know, once you get the Firefighter 1-2 certification, you have it for life. Well, with the EMT certification, it's a continuous learning process, and you have to recertify every 2 years, and we do all that within the department. So we'd never bring anybody on board and then let them hang. You know, obviously, we're going to help everybody and try to move them forward. But it's you know, the cadet program was obviously targeted for high school kids. Anybody else of age, by all means, come on down. I have bigger and better things for you to do. Typically, we have 1 training per month. Sometimes I'll have 2. So it's a Tuesday night, about 2 hours. The first Tuesday, third Tuesday is what the rule in the rules and regs. Typically, right now, we're doing 1 training per month. We're trying to obviously social distance, wear masks. You know, the climate right now is not very good for large gatherings, but luckily we have a small group. And then as far as situational for the calls, it's all dependent on what happens in town. If you have a storm ripping through, then you're going to be here for a couple of hours, or you might have a fire alarm occasionally. There's no rhyme or reason to how the calls come in. It could be 1 or 2 times per week. It could be 1 o'clock in the morning, or it could be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's no, you know, well, let me back up. I should say, I think we're averaging about 200 recalls per year. So that would probably be the commitment. So you'd be looking at about 200 calls per year, 12 trainings per month. And then obviously sometimes there's some additional trainings that we do to maintain certifications that are above and beyond.
Okay.
As an EMT, you're required to do 30 hours of training every 2 years, maintain your CPR card. If you become a paramedic, 60 hours of training every 2 years. You have to maintain your ACLS, advanced cardiac life support ticket, and a CPR card. But I think that if we focus on trying to find some people that are local to fill that gap, and one of the things that you have to realize is that when I'm looking at full-time firefighters, one of the things is I also look at where they live. I may sacrifice somebody who doesn't have as much training but lives close. Rather than for the people that, you know, 18 years of experience and lives 60 miles away. If somebody has a person out there, or if they know of somebody that's interested in being a call firefighter, obviously approach me, give me a call, give me an email. I'm willing to chat and talk and tell you about everything that's great about Medfield and the fire department that we have. It's just, you know, we're struggling for people and we need the help.
The full presentation and select board meeting is available on our watch page, medfield.tv/watch, or on our YouTube channel, Medfield TV. You can also listen to this and other interviews and meetings on the Medfield TV podcast at medfield.tv/listen or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Up next are a few highlights from Representative Teresa Garlick's annual report to the community that was held through Zoom on January 28th.
This is actually our 10th annual report. I want you to know that I have worked on the issue of listening to your concerns in all of the ways that are listed here, and I feel like our communication between constituents, between the municipality and my office is strong. I want to talk to you about what it means to be connected to the community, to be listening. So not all the issues are issues that matter on Beacon Hill, and the issues that I talk to the Board of Selectmen with, that I talk to Christine with, and the constituents with are things that are happening in the community of Medfield and in the neighborhoods. One example of this is just around Eversource. Certain neighborhoods in Medfield were having an overwhelming issue with lost power. This is a multifaceted issue. It took many conversations with Eversource. But I want you to know, because of the work of the town administrator and working with Senator Feeney as well as Rep. Dooley, we got a commitment from Eversource to fix the problem causing the power outages. And actually, this is a big fix because they moved the work that needed to be done in Medfield up on their capital plan by 3 years. And I'm hoping right now people have power so that they can see this program because of that partnership within the town. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is connecting with the community to understand those issues. So these are the issues which I have heard from the community of Medfield on in just this past year. The other thing that we were dealing with around COVID-19 and the stay-at-home advisory that has affected everyone are these issues. And Medfield, in particular, the community, has worked very hard with their community coalition around the issues of mental health and substance misuse. And my office stays in very close contact on those issues. And finally, I want to talk to you about what that looks like for us when we're talking about COVID-19. On the local level, I want to take a moment and really call out the Board of Health in the town of Medfield. These are volunteers who have assumed a great responsibility and are working steadfastly around the issues of COVID. Certainly, we have a facility in the town for older adults. The Council on Aging has done extraordinary work in reaching out to the older adults of Medfield, not only in ways that are informative, but in ways that increase that sense of a network. Things that sound simple, like driving up to get an ice cream sandwich, actually builds community and reminds people that they belong to something bigger. So for all of the great things that the Council on Aging has done, and all of the things that might seem small, they have all made a difference, as have the community organizations in the town, certainly the Medfield Food Pantry. And finally, I just wanted to highlight the monies that had come into the town because of a variety of revenue streams. When you look at this, is the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, then the state mobilized money for elementary and secondary school emergency fund and COVID supports. This is the money that came directly to Medfield. That money was able to be used for ventilation, for some remote learning issues, for PPE issues. It is a drop in the bucket compared to what Medfield really needs. I'm glad we were able to mobilize some monies, but I am deeply respectful that we need more. Two of the most important revenue streams that Medfield counts on is local aid as well as Chapter 70. One of the things we did very early in the pandemic is we guaranteed to the communities that we would have level fund the local aid money and the Chapter 70 money, regardless of what else was happening in the world that we could predict and that we couldn't predict. We wanted to keep these two budgets stable. It was a promise that we kept, and it allowed the town of Medfield to have a stable, sustainable, and predictable budget moving forward. But there was a great sensitivity to the needs of small businesses. We are trying to keep the Commonwealth sustainable in this difficult time so that the Commonwealth will prosper in future times. So one of the ways we were supporting the small businesses was through a grant cycle. And in the town of Medfield, not only the work that Medfield did about outdoor dining, but Medfield received 12 grants, their small businesses, to support them as the year was going on. Certainly, I want to talk to you about the Racial Equity and Law Enforcement Reform Bill. We brought forward language around Standards and Training Commission. We will now certify law enforcement people in Massachusetts. That has not happened before. It establishes a base of knowledge. It establishes standards. There is now a duty to intervene. Every single one of us that was moved by the murder of George Floyd, one of the most confusing elements was that while one officer kept his knee on the neck of George, the other 3 officers looked on. This will never be allowed to happen in our Commonwealth, never. There is a legal law for a duty of intervene. We dealt with the use of force issues and how that's changed over time and how to clarify that. And there is a discussion around a review of civil service with a sense that we want to make sure we can bring the best pool of applicants to be our law enforcement officials. We actually brought forward a bill on promoting a resilient healthcare system, and we have seen better compliance and better outcomes for individuals that are getting their healthcare through telehealth. We have expanded the practice for nurse practitioners. We needed as many hands and as many boots on the ground during COVID-19 times. We still need that. And so we needed to make sure that nurse practitioners were allowed by law to practice at the highest scope of their license. The other issue that I was proud to vote on was the many issues of reproductive health, Title X funding to ensure that would not, that there would be supplemental funding for that. The Nasty Woman Act, that's an acronym. It actually was to make sure that we had wiped off antiquated laws that were on the books in the Commonwealth. The Patch Act was to ensure that there is sensitivity and confidentiality around information, particularly related to women's health. And the Access Act was to provide copay free contraceptives in Massachusetts. In the final banner down the bottom is the act providing for access to reproductive health services. This is the Roe bill. I voted in the affirmative on the Roe bill and have felt my whole life as a mother, as a woman, as a nurse, that I would always uphold a woman's right to choose. This is the climate bill. This is our work. I hear from many of my constituents in Medfield about their commitment to climate and our concern about what is happening with energy and the environment. This is a roadmap for net zero carbon emissions by 2050. We have moved ahead with confidence on an economic development bill, not only to support science and technology research, which is a hallmark of our Commonwealth, but around the state payroll protection program. This is people who may not otherwise have qualified for unemployment, and we wanted to make sure that the small businesses that were not eligible in the federal program would be supported by our Commonwealth. And something very important to Medfield is the Mass Cultural Council, and we mobilized resources for that. I'll tell you, these are the policy and budget issues that we are watching in 2021. I'm sure, like in 2020, new things will come to our attention and we will move on those issues as best we can. And I do want to take at this time a moment to thank all of the incredible Medfield partners that I work with. It is an extraordinary town, and it is growing, and it is changing, and it is sensitive and responsive to the needs of the residents who are there. And I believe that even in these dark days, when we think of the pandemic, Medfield has a bright and beautiful future. And at this time, we'll go to questions. And here's my good friend, Peter Filosa. And my thank you to Medfield TV for keeping the residents of Medfield informed and engaged during the pandemic. Thank you very much.
The full report from Representative Garlick is available on our watch page, medfield.tv/watch, or on our YouTube channel, Medfield TV. You can also listen to this and other interviews and meetings on the Medfield TV podcast at medfield.tv/listen or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Now we have an update with School Committee Chair Jessica Reilly.
I'm Jessica Reilly, and I am the School Committee Chair currently.
Hi, I'm Leo Brehm. I'm the Vice Chair for the School Committee.
We're going to try to provide kind of a brief update, obviously, on where the schools stand on 3 issues. The first one is where we are on the student learning model and progressing towards getting more children in school for a longer period of time physically, and how we'll do that safely as possible. And the second is the fiscal year 2022 school budget. And the third is the Dale Street School project, which is moving along. We're reaching some benchmarks at this point. We started with pre-K initially right off the bat. Kindergarten just this week has gone back in full-time at the 6-foot distance, and we have gotten very creative around space within the Memorial School to do that. Our next plan is to get first grade in, and we expect them to be back in the building full-time at the end of February vacation. Dr. Marston very specifically put kind of a stake in the ground, a goal for us to have K through 12 in school full-time, masked and still socially distanced, and keeping many of the safety measures in place, along with a plan for pool testing, which will allow us to kind of know where an outbreak might occur before it becomes much more serious, and available rapid antigen testing throughout the schools for all children, should they need it, should they exhibit symptoms. And we would like to see that happen as of April 5th.
It's unfortunate that Medfield's been plagued by some technical issues this month. A series of them troubleshooting the issue, and unfortunately, somewhat victimized about what's happening in numerous places across the country. We live in a world where the internet everything runs on the internet and relies on it full time, and some people around the world feel like it is their duty to disrupt that through various types of attacks. And this particular one, Medfield was a victim of what's called a DDoS attack. And they do it very quickly to disrupt the connection. So they send a ton of traffic at our internet access to make it slow down, and which will break all those Zoom classes. And it puts it down for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then it stops. So you can get back on again, and then they do it again. They took some time to get some equipment and some services in place to get that corrected. And
last night had the annual public budget hearing for fiscal year 2022, and Dr. Marston presented his proposed budget. What happens at an annual budget hearing is that we take all questions and answers, we do question and answer session, and take all questions that people have about the budget. This year, we've also put an extended comment form on the school district website under the school committee page, if anybody would like to look at the budget, which is also on the school committee page, and give us comments around their concerns or things that they would like to see. After the 10% cut that we had to take last year on top of a cut from our original budget, we are just trying to maintain the level of service that we are providing now within those constraints from last year, which actually still puts us at a 3.99% increase to last year's fiscal year budget. The town has presented us that we need to, or that they would prefer our number to be 1%, which ends up not being a level of service budget, but a budget in which we have significant personnel cuts.
Well, the budget is definitely going to be something that we're going to have to, it's going to be a primary focus, and it's going to be a tough road because we can't get blood from a stone. And let's just hope that we can maybe get some more stimulus from the government.
I think the last thing we really wanted to talk about was the Dale Street project,
yeah.
Which is really, it's coming to an exciting time.
Yeah, a little shiny spot there with all the with all the issues. Well, I represent the school committee on the Dale Street project, and we're excited because we just met with MSBA to review our education plan, and we got some very nice kudos from the board, saying that it was one of the best plans that they've ever read, and so we took that as a great compliment because we've put a lot of time and effort, as you know, into gathering feedback from the community and from our educators and our students about what they would like to see in a brand new elementary school. And our architect, has made some very nice proposals on how to fit the school nicely to complement the other building that will be on the site. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am about the instructional impact that will have about having continuous 4 grades on one site.
Right. And that was one thing that the MSBA really focused on how important they thought having both of those buildings as a campus measure. Although they were disappointed that we did not feel as though we could do a 3, 4, 5, having those 2 buildings in the same place helped them feel like we were meeting that need within the community. Yeah,
we're coming closer at least, right? So and I think it'll be good for our students on that transition from school to school, which is very difficult for our little ones. So we're excited about that, and they'll be able to share resources as well on that same site. So and we also explored, because we're fiscally responsible, we're also exploring something called the model school plan, which has not been used as much. Because it does not take into consideration our educational plan, but we're exploring that as well, and we're excited to move forward. We have a meeting next Wednesday of the Dale Street School Building Committee,
and the Selectboard, right?
And the Selectboard, next week. So we're excited about what our next steps will be there.
The full school committee update is available on our watch page, medfield.tv/watch. or on our YouTube channel, Medfield TV. You can also listen to this and other interviews and meetings on the Medfield TV podcast at medfield.tv/listen or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Now we have an update with the chair of the Planning Board, Teresa James, regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendments for the 2021 annual town meeting.
So just to kind of quickly recap what has been going on and what has been talking about, one of them, the bylaws, has to do with Janes Avenue rezoning. But what is going on is there's a small little parcel. This is, zoning laws actually can be very confusing, but our zoning districts say what can be put where. And there's a bridge between that industrial zone between a BI zoning, where Montrose is at, and the B zoning. So BI stands for business industrial, B zoning stands for business, and there's actually, as you know, some little residentials there, and we actually had a citizens petition the planning board because they needed to do some work there. So it seems to make sense to us that we endorse this and kind of move that forward. So it's a pretty simple one that's before the town. The second one has to do with an adult-only retail tobacco, basically a vape store prohibition. You'll see here that basically we are recommending an inclusion in the Chapter 300 zoning amendment table of use regulations, which says what type of business can go where and into which zone. And in that table of use, we're recommending no across all of the zones across Medfield. The third item is actually food trucks. Food trucks, and in this is another change to the table of use. And basically, we're recommending that in the business industrial, and industrial executive, that planning board be granted a site plan approval, authorization to review food trucks and mobile food vendors on those properties with permission by the property owner, of course. And that site plan approval would have them come before the planning board talk about the impacts of use, hours of operation, proposed location, noise, odors, traffic, circulation, parking, trash, waste, seating, access to facilities, signings, and obviously the permission from the property owner. Hours of operation really key. So it's just a way to come before and then allow anybody to speak in favor or against that kind of use in one of those. The fourth one is a special permit process for decks and porches into the setback. This one's a little harder to explain, to be honest, because in the zoning bylaws we have different things about, distance and setbacks. So, certain things have to be a certain distance and so forth. And what we're recommending in this particular bylaw is to allow a section which allows the Board of Appeals, not the Planning Board, but to review and approve on a case-by-case basis via a public hearing the encroachment of covered or uncovered decks and porches into the required front and rear setback via special permit. The reason we wanted to bring that to the table is really that the current process actually requires a variance which has strict statutory requirements when you're going forth for the Zoning Board of Appeals asking for a variance, which typically cannot be lawfully applied since most deck and porch extensions are for the more functional and subjective purposes. There still would be a review with this process, but however, what we're saying is let's pull it out of that variance category and move it more over into this amendment. Moving on to number 5 is accessory structures. Accessory structures are things like, sheds and small buildings and things of this nature. And really what this bylaw does is it kind of brings it more in line with the Massachusetts State Building Code. Our current bylaw actually gave a dimension, 15 by 200 feet. We actually changed that. That's the biggest change, is to saying 200 square feet. This would still require a building permit and code review for accessory structures, and the setback requirements are still as is. And that brings us to our new one. And our new one has to do with solar and solar energy, and really capitalizing on that. In 2016, we actually put through a large-scale solar PV overlay district, and it was part of our process of becoming a green community in 2016. And what happens is that overlay district really focused on some ground-mounted solar in industrial zones in Medfield. This solar overlay district really didn't address all the other wonderful solar initiatives that are out there. And so we worked with MAPC and we looked at this hard and came back with a redraft of this solar PV overlay district. Related to solar, please do visit our town website, and underneath Planning Board, you'll actually see all of this documented, and you can read the proposed zoning bylaws, as well as there's a great document that has just been posted called Introduction to Local Solar Zoning. So it's just a quick 1-2 page. I recommend taking a quick read of that, and it makes it easier to understand that bylaw that's proposed. I will do a quick plug for the townwide master plan that has been put forth before the Board of Selectmen, and that was an initiative that, thank you so much for all of your public input, but all of those documents are now summarized and up on the town's site for review. So just wanted to put in a quick plug for that as well. Thank you so much, Medfield, and we would love to see you at our planning board meetings.
As for what Medfield TV has been up to this month, we released a series of videos from the Medfield Energy Committee called Expert Voices on Energy Efficiency in Medfield. These are available on our YouTube channel or watch page for viewing. We've also been live streaming high school sports or posting the filmed games very soon after they're played if we're unable to live stream. We also continue to live stream select board and school committee meetings. We recorded a new episode of What the Adults, our first original Medfield TV podcast, which is also available in video format. Here's a quick preview of that episode in which we talk about how 2020 went and what we're looking forward to for 2021.
Is it recording?
You have 40 minutes to get through a 45-minute show.
What?
I don't know,
Why did you assume it's 45 minutes?
because we all are talkers.
Are we? I think that's just you, pal. Today we're talking about 2020, what we enjoyed about it, our biggest projects, and then also looking forward to 2021 because we love a New Year's resolution.
I never really do revolutions or anything or.
Well, it's resolution.
Let's start a revolution!
Personally, like, I think it was a great year.
Yeah, Brett got to skip his wedding.
Oh my God! That's not how we put that.
Oh my God.
I think all of us could agree that the highlight of 2020 was the holiday stroll.
Easily,
And that
yeah.
was
Yeah,
that was the
absolutely.
pinnacle for everybody. My staff come together to hit like a stride and hit a moment was the holiday stroll for me. I didn't really do a whole lot that day. I got to sit back and
It seemed effortless,
Yes.
but it wasn't. It was stress-inducing.
I was cut to a pre-made interview, so we were playing that, and I like opened the door. I was like, "Brett, the camera's off. Talk to
just
Mike."
like that. And so I look at Gene and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have to jump on a phone call real quick. And I talked to Mike Geegan through fixing that. And Gene is just sitting there and she goes, I never knew that this is what it's like. And I'm like, yeah, this is what people don't see. Speaking of unpredictable, let's talk about Halloween for a second.
Oh God.
I will say this. Winter Lights doesn't happen without Halloween. So you needed that mess to happen first to have the beautiful success that was the Winter Lights.
Let me just say, mess is such a great way to describe it.
So subscribe to us on YouTube.
Or I'll fight you. Happy 2021, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, here's to getting bigger and better, doing cooler stuff.
Nice. Everyone smile for a thumbnail. Nice.
I probably looked scared.
Watch the full episode on our watch page or YouTube channel, or listen on the Medfield TV podcast. To stay up to date with all things Medfield, be sure to like Medfield TV on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @Medfield TV. Watch full episodes of all of our shows on our website, medfield.tv/watch, or on our YouTube page, Medfield TV. Listen to meetings, interviews, and our original podcasts at medfield.tv/listen, as well as on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Lastly, don't forget to tune into our cable stations, channels 8, 12, and 22 on Comcast, and channels 36, 45, and 47 on Verizon. That's it for the January 2021 episode. See you next month for another episode of Mupdates, your monthly Medfield updates.